Welcome to Insights for Manufacturing, the podcast that supports the UK manufacturing sector. Hosted by Jeff Beacham, the manufacturer's recruiter. Welcome to Insights for Manufacturing. Today we're going to be discussing investment in UK manufacturing and design funding with my guest, John Mathers, CEO at the British Design Fund. Welcome to the show, John.
Delighted to be here. Jeff.
Great. Really looking forward to this discussion. So let's hop straight in then. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing design-led startups in the UK today, John, especially in the manufacturing sort of arena?
Well, I think inevitably it's an obvious answer in one respect. It's funding.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And I think funding generally for very early stage enterprises is challenging. For manufacturing startups in particular, it's really challenging. And that's because although there have been all the challenges with technology companies in recent years, there's still a reluctance or a lack of understanding about the contribution that manufacturing can make.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that there probably still is a mentality that Britain's manufacturing great days are over. Whereas I think those of us who are embedded in the whole industry recognize the talent, the innovation, the inventiveness that actually still exists in manufacturing. So I think the answer is funding. I think the second, if I had a second one, it's about how do you bring a lot of manufacturing that has disappeared from the UK back into the UK. We're seeing an awful lot of companies that we're involved in, that we've invested in, reaffirming the quality that British craftsmanship, tradesmanship, engineering can actually bring. But there's still a lot of change that needs to happen in terms of people recognizing that maybe you have to sometimes pay a bit more to get the quality. But I said to you earlier, I was meandering around the M25 today, and I was listening to a program on Radio 4 about the importance of circularity and the importance of retaining the quality of what we use time and time again. And I think that is a movement that I see happening more and more. And if you have quality in the first place and less throwaway items, then actually that's going to be the thing that is the most important thing in the future. So I'm quietly optimistic about where things might be in the future, but I recognize the challenges that we currently face.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for sharing your insights on that particular topic. And I'm sure, with the whole reshoring thing, I think it's the habit's got to be broken, hasn't it? A lot of businesses have just been so used to offshoring, outsourcing and getting stuff made elsewhere, even if it is designed and engineered in the UK. But we are seeing, that tide turn a little bit. So with you, I'm sort of quietly optimistic.
Well, I'm not going to tell you who quoted this to me, but one of the companies we work with, that we invested in and mentor, has actually just brought as much manufacturing as they can back to the UK. And the reason they said, and I'm not going to name the country, but the country they were previously manufacturing, they were using the manufacturing for, they were quite used to 50% of it coming out the front door, 50% of it going out the back door. Wow. And that actually is something that is inexcusable and has to change. And I also think that global politics is going to have a huge impact on a shift in manufacturing in the future. It may take a few years, but I think if some of the rhetoric that is coming out of America at the moment actually comes to reality, then I think that we'll find things fundamentally change.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. So watching brief on that one. So in terms of the British Design Fund, John, what's behind the creation of the British Design Fund, and how is it sort of mission evolved over the years to support businesses commercially and from a sort of purpose point of view? Because I know it's very much values and purpose led,
Sure,
isn't it, as an
sure,
organization?
sure. Okay, well, so long story short, I was chief exec of the Design Council for a number of years, and if it's interesting if you look back to the provenance of the Design Council, created by Winston Churchill back in 1944.
Yeah.
And it was all about promoting well-designed British manufacturing. Being quite frank, it was all about making sure that British manufacturing stood a chance against the Americans,
Yeah. Yeah.
bringing the might of their manufacturing prowess back to the UK. And we that was the provenance. We had a benefactor who came in and said, I have had a hugely successful manufacturing career in the UK. I want to give something back, and I want somebody to help us run that." So we jumped at the chance. So we set up a program called Spark, which was investing in well-designed, purpose-led, very early stage. I mean, literally, we were looking at ideas on the back of an envelope,
Yeah.
British products. And so we set up a program where we did a 20-week accelerator program, brought in all that people would need in terms of manufacturing, IP knowledge, putting a business case together, personnel, the whole shebang. And at the end of that, we would run an investor program. So getting people along to listen to these people presenting, doing amazing presentations. And we could always find as many investors who were interested in technology as you could shake a stick at. How many people were interested in manufacturing?
Yeah.
It was really difficult. Um, and so essentially, I left the design council. Colleague and I, Damon Bonser, thought, there's a gap in the market here. Let's see if there's a market in the gap. And so 7 years on, having survived COVID and all that brought, we now have
Yeah.
10 million pounds invested. We have almost 40 companies that we've invested in, and you just need to look at the WW British Design Fund website to see the diversity of products. We're very clear that it's not only the money that's important, and we invest maybe 150, 200 grand in early stage products,
Yeah.
but it's the mentoring and the support that we give companies that is actually the most important thing. And we're very proud that we've got that breadth and diversity. Purpose led, that came quite easily, actually. There's no point in us investing in another armchair or another bit of wallpaper or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We're actually about in interested investing in things that will make a difference, a real difference to the way that the world operates
Yeah.
and what we can actually do. And to be honest, we get about 1,000 applications a year. We're lucky. We probably invest in about 12 new companies a year. We'd
Yeah.
love to invest in more, and we've got plans to grow to that effect. But that means ramping up the money that comes in
Yeah.
and the process of evaluating and pushing out. The lovely thing is that there's loads of companies who come our way who just aren't right at the moment or aren't ready at the moment. And we make a real effort to try and keep in touch with them
Yeah.
because we know that one day they're going to be great people to invest in. Um, and for us, I have to be very careful here because we're investing people's money, and so therefore our job is to have a return. But it's
Absolutely.
also about actually supporting British industry, supporting the future, and making a difference. And I don't think the two are necessarily out of kilter with each other.
No, well,
But
it's really
I'll
refreshing.
go even further to say that actually, if you invest in things that are making a real difference and have a real point of difference, then actually I think the money flow will follow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking there. It's a refreshing sort of facet to investment because from if you're an outsider looking in at investment, there's a lot of successful PE businesses out there and VC organizations. And yeah, investors always need to turn a profit. But I dare say when there's investment in businesses, it's not always done necessarily for some of the right reasons. It's purely a financial thing, which is okay, and I'm not knocking that. But I think because you've got that balance of wanting to contribute to UK manufacturing, British manufacturing through the investments and giving these startup businesses, the support that they need. I think it gives it a bit of heart and soul as well as just a sort of commercial balance sheet. If that makes any sort of sense, it's just really nice to have that blend of success, profitability, helping the business grow, but also that really noble sense of helping these businesses make a difference. And you don't always see that, so I'm delighted to be talking to you about this whole sort of concept, John.
Well, there are two things that make me feel really good. One is the companies we invest in who say, you know what, the money has been fantastic, but actually it's the mentoring and the support
Yeah.
that has actually made the difference, and it makes it really worth it. So that's fantastic. And on the other hand, investors who come back to us and say, first of all, we love the investor updates that you send out, and it makes us actually proud to know that with a bit of luck, we're making some money, but actually we're making a difference as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so one of the big topics at the moment, I've just recorded another podcast recently on this sustainability. So it's been around for a while now, but it's still a growing concern in a lot of industries. How important is sustainable manufacturing, and sustainable design to
Yeah.
the British Design Fund when you're looking at perhaps investing in a business?
It's right at the heart of what we look for.
Okay.
I mean, the vast majority, if not 100% of the ventures we now invest in have some degree of sustainability at the very heart of what they do.
Okay.
Um, some of the really successful ones are actually doing major things to change the world in terms of sustainability. So, for instance, let me give you an example. Matter, for instance,
Okay.
Bristol-based company, ex-Dyson engineer, who actually has at his heart, he wants to take microplastics out of the environment. So, every time you do your washing, you wash millions of microplastics back into the system, out into the sea,
Yeah.
and you eat it, and then and the cycle goes on and on and on. His mission is to take every single microplastic element out of the water system, so that we just remove something that shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah.
That's at the very heart of sustainability. And there's so much that goes on that the vast majority of people don't know about, but actually is hugely important. We've invested in a huge thing about the blue technology is really important for us now.
Okay.
What we do with our oceans and how we look after our oceans and how we use our oceans in ways that have never been thought about before.
Mm.
Really important for us. So yeah, no. And actually, funnily enough, on my same M25 trip today, it must have been Women's Hour I was listening to. Apologies. There we go.
Other shows are available.
Yeah, other shows are available. And talking about the circular economy. Well,
Yeah.
I know the Ellen MacArthur Foundation really well, and the circular economy, the impact they've made in terms of thinking about the circular economy. And actually, if you go back to the design question, how can we get designers challenging briefs from manufacturers to say, we need to think about how this becomes a circular product.
Yep.
What is it we're doing with this product that can actually go round the loop and go back into the system, so that actually we're not throwing stuff away any longer. And huge advocate of that.
Yeah, and that really follows on from for quite a while, there's been design for manufacture, design for assembly. These are processes that the designers and the engineers will use to make whatever the products are in the most efficient way. But now we're adding in things like, design for sustainability, design for recycling. So it's a holistic approach, isn't it? Where maybe design in the past was design the product, design for its use for the end user, and design for the manufacturer so you can make it. But now it's just gone
Yeah,
totally
but
full
if
circle,
you go
isn't it?
back to if you look at most design courses these days, and for the last 10 years or so, designers are taught about the circular economy.
Yeah,
Designers are taught about sustainability, and actually, it's up to the design community to actually challenge the briefs they get.
yeah,
Um, they start to take responsibility for bringing that element into what they do.
yeah, yeah. And that's an interesting topic itself. I'm sure there's quite a number of conversations that go on within businesses between the design people and the
Yeah,
manufacturing people and the sales guys. But
yeah, yeah.
that's I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. It's an
But
interesting
it, well,
dynamic.
it will. I think it is changing. I think it's
Okay.
changing all the time because I think that the growing percentages of the population are actually concerned about the products they buy, where they come from, how
Yeah,
they're manufactured, what the impact of their manufacture has been, who's actually producing it, where's it produced, how's
yeah,
it produced, what are the financial implications of it, et cetera, et cetera. And the days of greenwashing are gone. You will not be able to greenwash your products for much longer
yeah,
because
yeah.
people can see being behind it and sort it out.
And thankfully, that's the case. Yeah, it's taken a while though, hasn't it? Whether the media have a good or not so good part to play in that, I'm not sure. But again, it goes back to that doing things for the right reasons, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so John, how does the British Design Fund go about, identifying and deciding on which businesses are the right ones to invest in? I mean, I'm sure you've probably got a process and a criteria, but for a business to fit what an ideal
Yeah.
investment would look like for you, how what's that process? Talk me through that.
Well, on current numbers, we're investing in about one business a month.
Okay.
Our ambition is to grow that next year to two businesses a month, and that's normally 150, 250,000 plus the associated mentoring costs and
Yeah.
what. Now, to get to 12, we probably see 1,000 applications every year. So what that to me says, the encouraging thing is there's tons of stuff going on out there. And our job is to filter down the ones that we think our investment community
Yeah.
will find most attractive. And that's all about what stage in revenue are, what TRL level you're at. So how close are you to manufacture?
Yeah.
Um, what IP protection you have. Um, and ultimately, it boils down to, we have a Dragon's Den type day, except we're nice people and we don't have piles of money by our desk. And we're not doing
Yeah.
it for television. We're doing it for,
Yes. Thank goodness.
yeah. So my wife gives me a hard time because I just shout at the television when Dragon's Den's on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but actually, to a serious point, having that face-to-face presentation is hugely important because actually we need to be able to look the founder and associated senior team in the eye and
Mm.
say two things. Do we believe that they actually are going to be successful and want to make this happen? And often the reason they came up with the idea in the first place is really important, and what they've injected into the business is really important as well. The second thing, and this is a really sort of slightly intangible one, is it's very rare that somebody who comes in with an idea at that stage ends up going to market with exactly what they had come in with.
Yeah.
It has to pivot, it has to change, it has to evolve. And we have to believe that the person we're talking to or the people we're talking to are willing to take advice, to take mentoring, to be able to change and evolve as time goes on. And there will inevitably be some people who are so wedded to the idea that they created that they're willing to budge an inch. And unfortunately, they're not the people that will be successful in the end.
Yeah. I suppose there's quite a
You've always, I'm all, I'm that was a bit of a sweeping statement, so I'm careful because there will always be. I mean, I'm sure James Dyson, for instance, was unswerving in his, drive to create what he wanted, and but not everyone is a James Dyson.
Yeah, absolutely, and point taken. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people out there that have come up with this idea or an invention or whatever it might be, and they're just so passionate about it, and but they're so close to it, and they're in their own little bubble, and they're emotionally attached to it, aren't they? And sometimes that can cloud a little bit of your judgment, and maybe the numbers don't stack up, or they haven't thought things through in enough detail. And as you say, things evolve and they change, don't they? So if you've got a fixed mindset, unless you absolutely hit on the next great thing, yeah, I think you've got to be prepared to make a few changes. So that's a few good tips there, John, for anybody out there that's in that sort of position themselves. So in terms of innovation, then again, this is something. Innovation is changing all the time. Technology's advancing at lightning speed. What role does innovation play in design in terms of perhaps reshaping the traditional manufacturing processes?
Okay, well, I'll go off at a tangent here. I was
Please.
listening to another BBC. You must think I just sit and listen to radio all day. Right? That's not
No,
the
and there's
case.
nothing wrong with that.
No, no, no. But I was listening to Toast the other day, and I don't know if you ever heard it. It's fantastic. It basically takes great case studies of things that have been successful once and then failed. And
Okay.
this particular episode, which was a couple of weeks ago, was all about Kodak and how
Yeah,
Kodak and senior Kodak employees had a particular way of evaluating new ideas, which was so rigid that it actually was able to diss digital photography completely. It'll
yeah,
never happen. It'll never change. Um, Senior Kodak managers talked about, if you have a fire in your house, what's the first thing you rescue? Your photographs. How could digital imagery ever replace that? Well, boy, did they get that one wrong.
yeah, yeah,
And actually, the I think for me, design is about curiosity. It's actually about understanding how things change, how people's lives change. I mean, you look at music, who would, you and I are of a certain age. Um, how many typologies of listening to music have we experienced in our lifetime? You
yeah,
know, bits of vinyl through to vinyl, to tape, to cassette, to streaming, back to vinyl,
yeah,
ironically.
yeah,
Um, and if you don't have the ability to be curious about how things change and how habits change and people change and attitudes change, then that's what innovation is all about. And design is about understanding the user. Ultimately, it's about understanding how people live their lives and what makes their lives fulfilling, and
yeah,
actually helping to provide products and services that actually enhance that.
yeah,
Simple.
absolutely. Absolutely. And in terms of sort of overall UK manufacturing, John, I mean the landscape well, again, this is something else that's sort of changing. Maybe not quite as fast as technology, but the overall manufacturing landscape. Where do you see that heading? I mean, there's been so many technological advancements. We've got AI, you know, already embedded in a lot of businesses. digitalization's been around for quite some time now. Where do you see the manufacturing sector heading then in terms of, maybe, technology and advanced sort of design
Yeah.
practices?
Well, I tell you what, I'm not going to do the AI thing because actually that's probably been covered a million times elsewhere. And I'm a great fan of AI. I think it's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Needs to be controlled.
Yes.
And I think, the mistakes we've made with social media, where we've got to social media too late, we need to get to AI quickly.
Mm.
But the thing for me that I think will make the biggest difference is collaboration. I
Wow. Yeah.
think I think people need to be much more open to working together, to exploring ways of working together, to exploring alternative ways of doing things, and also I think the creativity thing. Um, Jack Ma was the creator of Alibaba in
Yep.
China. And there's a very famous video, if you look on YouTube somewhere, you'll find it, when he was at Davos a couple of years ago. And he said, what we've got to stop doing is teaching our children to compete with machines. Because if all we do is teach them what machines can do, machines will always do it better than they can. What we've got to do is teach our children to think differently. We've got to teach them to think creatively. Therefore, we've got to teach them to paint and
Yeah.
to draw and to dance and to sing and do all of that stuff, because that's what's going to make people think differently. And so I'm a huge advocate of STEAM, not STEM. So having the arts in STEM.
Yep.
But I think that's what's going to make a difference in the future. And that's what's going to be the thing that will change British manufacturing is the innovation that comes from creativity of thinking differently and doing things different.
Yeah. That's really interesting. It's almost like listening to you there. It was like taking me back, quite a few decades when I was a kid. People were brought up and spent a childhood doing things that most kids don't do anymore these days. We had to find things out for ourselves a lot of the time and solve little problems. And what's this for? What's that for? Go out and mess in dad's shed and, get in the toolbox. Or, Dad, what's this? Oh, that's a plane. What's a plane do? And just
Yeah.
learning about how to saw wood, how to countersink into some wood so that the screw head
Taking
doesn't
things,
protrude.
taking
Simple
things to
stuff.
pieces, taking things to pieces and trying to put them back together again.
I was great at that. Yes, Dad, bless him, is still with us, and next time I speak to him, I shall probably bring up the time I broke his tape measure and I hid it. But that's a whole different story. But okay, so collaboration. Yeah, I mean, I've just recorded another podcast with a CEO of a manufacturing group, and that was really the core of the discussion was collaboration. So really pleased to hear you articulate about the importance of collaboration, in design and manufacturing moving forward. And I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head there. So in terms of entrepreneurs or businesses in manufacturing that are looking to integrate more design thinking into their processes, have you got any sort of tips or advice specifically for?
Well, so I don't know. I mean, more and more people I think realize this, but what is the world's most valuable company in the world? I'm
I don't know.
asking you.
Google? Is it Google? No.
Apple. Apple.
Apple. Right. Okay.
And do you know why I think Apple is the most valuable company in the world? Is because they had a British designer at the very heart of what they did. So Johnny Ive was an industrial design graduate from Northumberland University who went on to create a studio in London, did some work for Apple. Steve Jobs recruited him and said, put design at the very heart of what Apple does. And Johnny Ives said, right, well, I'm going to make every single touch point that Apple has, so well designed that people aspire to. And if you've bought a new iPhone, the way the case opens and the way everything fits and the way that you switch the phone on and it just automatically works and intuitively you can make it work and a 12-month-old baby can make it work. Um, and its design is at the heart of absolutely everything. The stores, which revolutionized retail,
Yeah.
etc. And I remember about 10 years ago predicting that every business would have a head of design on or near the C-suite in years to come. And I'm not that far off that prediction, actually. Um, I mean, you look at McKinsey now, who produce reports on the value of design, the contribution that design makes, how design-led companies actually outperform where design is less well integrated.
Mm.
Um, and I think more and more people are realizing that design is not that sort of thing that you add on at the end of a process. For design to be really effective, it has to be at the very heart of the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
When I was at the design council, we produced a report called the Design Economy, which actually talked about the amount of GDP contribution that design made. It's huge. I mean, it's bigger than the financial services industry, which for
Yeah.
too long we in Britain have relied upon as the generator of income
Yeah.
in the design is everywhere. Everything you look at is design. Um, and I'll say my one of my favorite quotes are, I can't remember who said it, but you don't notice good design, you notice bad design.
Oh, don't
Good
you?
design is stuff that just works.
Yeah.
Good design is all everywhere about us. It just works. It makes life easy. It enhances the way that you live your life.
Mm.
Bad design makes things difficult.
Yeah.
So I think design is at the very heart of what we should be doing. And the more we embrace design and the more we celebrate design, and Britain is still celebrated around the world
Yeah.
for its
Very much so.
and its design quality and its design education. I mean,
Yeah.
the Royal Academy is still regarded as the peak of design thinking. So, we've got a great heritage to celebrate.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that, sort of design and, building in support for education and engineering and manufacturing businesses is really key in the upcoming industrial strategy if we ever get it.
Oh, yeah.
As you say,
Well, there is stuff coming through, I
yeah,
mean, the fact that I mean that we've already had the commitment to EIS and SEIS continuing, which is great.
yeah,
There's a Commonwealth Fund that is being talked about. There's lots of good noises coming out of the government at the moment about industrial strategy. Here's hoping it actually happens.
yeah, yeah. Well, let's remain optimistic. I'm sure it will. It's just we probably needed it sort of 5 years ago. But hey ho, it's as long as we get it, that's the main thing. So looking forward, then, John, what are there any areas within design and manufacturing that you're most excited about? In terms of the British Design Funds, are there any things that you're So we've spoken about the purpose-led and design-led businesses. I mean, what are you most excited about in terms of supporting trends in design and manufacturing and where that's going?
I mean, we're quite eclectic. I'll be honest. Um, but things like blue technology is really important. Um, uh, there's a alternative energy area that is actually we're constantly surprised by some of the things that are happening.
Yeah,
Transport is an area that has a huge amount of technology opportunity coming around the corner every day. Um, so yeah, I think I mean, I mean, the whole medical area is
yeah,
absolutely fantastic as well. I mean, it's difficult for us sometimes because frankly, sometimes medical breakthroughs take too long for us to uh, realistically invest in for the investment community that we have.
Yeah.
You never know, in the future we might have a bigger fund that we can use to follow on in those sorts of areas as well. So
Yeah.
and
Fantastic.
and always looking for new opportunities.
Yes. Well, that leads me on
Curious,
to
curious, curious. I think that's the
curiosity.
I would. Yeah.
There it is again. So, I mean, that leads us on to my last question, John, nicely. And I was going to ask you about any events or, resources from British Design Fund that we can signpost to our manufacturing audience. I mean, anything specific in the diary over the short term or perhaps into 2025 that you'd like to highlight?
Well, I think the it's quite interesting. We've been talking to a number, and I won't divulge their names, but a couple of very big British family owned manufacturing companies, and there's not many of them left. So
That's right.
probably if you're savvy enough,
Work it out.
work out who that might be. And what they're interested in is because often manufacturers get ingrained in this is what we do and this is our roadmap, and and how can we integrate innovation into what we do when actually we're so embroiled in just getting done with the day to day. Now, what we can do is work with some of those manufacturers to say, well, actually, we can give you access to innovators, to innovation, to new ways of doing things. You can bring some of your executives who you want to, who you see as, the future. How can you get them to think about innovation in a different way? Well, actually, we can actually potentially provide access to, even if it's coming to our investment committee
Mm,
or maybe getting involved in mentoring or something of that ilk, where you can actually have access to, the companies that we've done the due diligence on, that we know are viable for the future and are going somewhere. So you're not dealing with, fly-by-nights that are not going anywhere.
yeah.
So there could well be interesting partnerships with people where that sort of thing happens. Because I think that I know a lot of companies have tried to build sort of incubator programs into their companies, and they
Yeah.
never work.
Mm,
They never work because they're not set up by the right people or in the right way. And I think that our team have actually got a way of doing it that actually might be very attractive to a number of companies. Leave it at that.
fabulous. Well, let's give a shout out to the website then. So you're at British Design Fund, all one word, .co.uk. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And so any sort of fledgling businesses, startups, entrepreneurs
Yep.
can
So
find you
so
on there.
we're also on, I mean, the other, so I'll give you a little secret
Go
about
on.
marketing. So so British Design Fund sounds like it's been around forever and a day, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but yeah, well, 7 years, I think.
So it's only
Yeah, so
7 years.
still quite recent, isn't it?
But yeah, it is absolutely. But what we've been very careful about is building our brand
Yeah.
and managing our reputation. And and the way we do that is through LinkedIn.
Yep.
So we've recognized that if you know if we just bang on about what we do all the time, people are going to get turned off all the. But if we embrace and champion the sort of innovation that we see from all over the place and bring it together under one umbrella, which we
Yep.
do with British Design Fund on LinkedIn. I mean, if you look at LinkedIn every day, you'll see gazillions of stuff that happens, innovation that's happening all around the country. Um, and, whilst we're not claiming that we're directly involved in it, we are in some way supporting it and
Yeah.
embracing it and deepening it. Right. That's what we'll continue to do.
Great. So there's another one to check out the British Design Fund LinkedIn page. You just do a search on LinkedIn under companies and you will or organisations. You can find that. John, it's been a super discussion this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me on Insights for Manufacturing. I hope you've enjoyed our discussion. I'm sure the listeners or viewers will undoubtedly get some value out of your insights. So thanks again. Thank you, the audience, for tuning in, and we'll see you on another episode of Insights for Manufacturing. We'll see you next time, and bye-bye.